I heard this story the other day. This man from India who moved here to America said that after a year of living here in America, he developed an intolerance to glutens. But he couldn't understand this because he lived 30 years in India, in which they ate a diet that consisted of mainly foods with glutens, and he had no issues. But it seemed like when he came here to America, he developed a gluten intolerance and begins experiencing physical side effects. So he couldn't figure out why this was. And I think what is going on is that when you look at the food in India as opposed to the food in America, we have to talk about GMOs. Okay, a lot of the food in India is farmed and then consumed. It's all organic, it's all natural, and they don't have the ability to store it like we do here in America, and they don't have the ability to transport it like we do. So they have to consume on site, in their community. They cannot really go to the extremes of keeping food for a very long time like we do, because we process the hell out of foods. We add all these preservatives and we genetically modify them to keep their taste longer, to last longer. But in India, it's more organic, it's more naturally grown. A lot of people grow their own food and consume their own food. So I think that's the biggest difference between the two places. And if you look in America, we have some of the highest numbers of gluten intolerance, or gluten allergy, than any other place. Now, I think that's because what's happening is here in America, they are genetically modifying the wheat that we make bread with, that we make other products with, okay? And they're genetically modifying the glutens, and our body is not accepting these genetically modified organisms. They are rejecting these things that are being done to our food, and we can't consume and digest these things naturally like we could organic food. And our body has adapted to eating food that doesn't have preservatives in it, that doesn't have, that isn't processed, that isn't genetically modified. So our body is essentially rejecting this food because it's something that we don't, the best way to describe it would be like if a dog, right, it gets used to eating a specific type of dog food. And if you switch or change up its diet and give it another type of dog food, it could make it sick. If you give it certain foods that it doesn't normally eat, it could make it sick. And it's sort of the same way with us. If we're not, if we've grown up, and we've grown used to eating a specific type of organic food, and now we eat a food that's no longer organic and is pumped full of chemicals and preservatives and whatnot, then we develop an intolerance to it, and our body rejects it. I think that means, we need to push towards a more organic diet, because I don't necessarily think that the problem is the glutens that we're eating, that we're allergic to glutens. I think the problem is within the food we're eating here in this country, and that it's not organic, that's been processed, it's been genetically modified, and there are all these preservatives and things like that added, and that's what our body is rejecting, not the glutens. And I think that you could potentially have a diet of glutens, that glutens aren't bad for you. It's just that our bodies can't process the GMOs and the genetically modified glutens, and that's where the issue lies. And that's why I think it's important to go to a more organic diet, because I think even stop eating glutens, that may not even help you, because you're still getting GMOs, you're still getting processed food that's pumped full of chemicals and preservatives. And I think our body rejects that because we're not used to eating that. That's not what our ancestors ate. That's not what we've been eating for thousands of years. We've been eating organic food that was farmed and fresh, okay? And I think that this is causing a lot of our medical issues and problems that people are seeing these days. Even our meats, you know, a lot of people don't realize this, but what you consume, right, you also take in. And so when you eat these foods that are processed and have all these chemicals in it to preserve them, you take on those chemicals and your body absorbs those chemicals. And it's the same thing with the meats and stuff. You know, we want to produce more meat, and we want to produce larger animals that produce more meat. So we pump our animals, our livestock, they pump them full of, you know, hormones and steroids and things that will make them bigger, make them produce more meat, right? They give them tons of hormones like estrogen because it makes their breasts bigger. And what do we eat on a chicken? The chicken breast. What do we, you know, eat on a lot of things are the chest parts or the back parts. And these are the things that are increased by giving the animals hormones. And so they give these animals all these hormones and they give them these steroids and things like that, right? And then we consume that meat and we take on those steroids and we take on those hormones. And we're seeing this deficiency in men where they are lacking in testosterone and they have more estrogen than testosterone. And it causes some sort of medical issues. It causes this imbalance. So we're seeing that slowly men are, you know, losing their testosterone and becoming less masculine and more feminine in a ways. And there's nothing wrong with that, is what I'm saying. But basically, that should alarm you. Not that you're, you know, not that the fact that a person is you know, taking estrogen because they want to, or taking testosterone. The fact that these people are, you know, some of these people, they don't want to lose their testosterone, or they're not trying to take estrogen or have more estrogen in the bloodstream or testosterone. It's the fact that they, you know, unknowingly have more estrogen in their system and they can't figure out why, and that's because of the meat they consume. And if you ever notice why people are getting bigger and taller and stronger, it's because of the steroids that they put in the food, and it's making people bigger and stronger and taller. If you wonder why young adults are maturing faster, like I said, it's the hormones they put in these foods, you know, and we consume that, and if we take on that, our body absorbs that. If this is the problem with our food these days, is that I think we're going to see a lot more intolerances and allergies and a lot more problems with these things, because our body needs an organic diet to thrive and to grow and to successfully maintain a natural health. And I think the problem is that we're too dependent on these stores and, you know, other people for our food. And maybe it's time that we wake up and we start depending on ourselves for our food, and we start making our own food and growing our own food and raising our own livestock, because essentially, you know, right, you wouldn't just go to a stranger and have them give you something and then, you know, take this and not know what it is, right? You would feel more comfortable if you knew the food that you're eating or the food that you're growing. You knew what was in it, and you knew what you were consuming, and you knew what you were taking, and you knew if it was bad for you or not, and you knew how it was raised, and you knew how it was grew, and you knew that the animals were treated humanely. And I think this is why we need to move towards a more organic lifestyle. And I think we're going to see more gluten allergies. I think we're going to see more of these strange allergies that we hadn't seen before, because of the GMOs and the processing and the ability to try and create more food to make more profit, all comes down to money. And I think that's the biggest problem, is that we need to be careful, because there are people out there who just want to make money, and they don't care about you, and they don't care about your family. They just want to make money any way possible. And that's why you need to look out for yourself and figure out what you're eating and what you're intaking into your body. I think it's very important.